Today, let's break down the newest assault rifle, the Grav. It's quite interesting that we got the Grav since we don't only have one Galil in the game, but we technically have two. And sure, they're very different in both real life and in the game, but it's still interesting nonetheless. So is it worth running the Grav, or are both weapons in the battle pass just worth ignoring? In this build, we'll be using the suppressor, the 21.3 inch task force barrel, axial arms 3x optic, field aging grip, and 50 round mags. And let's get straight into the stats, starting with mobility. It has an ADS time of 290 milliseconds, which is comparable more to Modern Warfare weapons than Cold War weapons. It has a reload and reload add time of 4.23 and 3.43 seconds. Definitely save at least one bullet in the mag. This is really slow either way. And sadly, with its mag cap of 50, you're probably going to find yourself reloading way more than you want. While its movement and sprint speeds are still considered good, they are actually kinda slow for Cold War. They're much more comparable to a faster Modern Warfare weapon, which is really interesting. And its ADS strafe speed is barely 1.5 meters per second, which again is kinda slow for a longer range assault rifle. Its sprint out and tac sprint out times are 250 and 370 milliseconds, which is average, and its stability is 1.5T, which is great. Its bullet velocity is 1111.1 meters per second, which is nice to see, and its rate of fire is 12.56 rounds per second, or 754 rounds per minute. This places it 120 rounds per minute more than the CR-56, but 50 under the Fara. So it gets a mobility score of 36. Its recoil is strangely similar to the CR-56, however, it has a much higher magnitude vertically, but much less side-to-side bounce. It's usable up to 105 meters, which is 5 more than the CR-56, but 35 less than the Fara. So this is not a weapon you're going to be using to extreme ranges, so it gets a recoil score of 40. For its damage, it has a drop-off point at 34 meters. In the first damage range, its headshot damage and TTK are way below average, but its upper torso, lower torso and limb TTKs are average. In the second damage range, its headshot TTK is now average, but its upper torso, lower torso and limb TTKs are above average. And at both ranges, getting one headshot in the mix reduces your shots to kill by 1, and suddenly your TTKs are much better. And in that first damage range, that TTK you can potentially get is almost as good as the best SMGs. So it gets a damage score of 62.5, and when we add up all the categories, it gets a final score of 138.5. So how does it compare against the CR-56 and the Fara? Pretty much, if you want longer ranges, stick with the Fara. There's no real reason to use a Grav. Sure, the Grav has better TTKs, but if you're truly stretching things out to 120 meters and on, you're not going to be able to hit any of your shots. However, if all your combat is under 100 meters, then yeah, you can probably use the Grav and do better. However, I think the Grav is best compared against the CR-56, especially since they both best function under 100 meters. They both serve a role as a medium-range rifle, but now that the Grav is here, I find very little reason to ever use the CR-56. Sure, the CR-56 deals more damage per shot, but because it has a much lower rate of fire, it also has a longer time to kill. And if you're using it the way you're supposed to be using it, you're not going to be tap firing the CR-56. And either way, the Grav only takes one more shot to kill than the CR-56. The only place the CR-56 has a massive advantage is with its headshot damage in the first damage range. But it's extremely unlikely that you're ever going to experience this insane TTK. The CR-56 also has a much better reload time, almost a second better in both ways. But it also has less ammo. The CR-56's strafe speed is slightly faster, but then the Grav has just better mobility stats everywhere else. So yeah, if you're using this between 30 and 100 meters, the Grav is gonna win every time. But the Grav is just better than the CR-56, and many of you know that the CR-56 really isn't that much of a meta gun anymore. There are much better choices like the EM2 or technically even the Fara. But you wouldn't be using the Grav or the CR-56 to do the same job that an EM2 does. You'd probably use the Grav as a more all-purpose assault rifle, trying to cover all your ranges possible and maybe pairing it with a long-range sniper rifle even. Especially since you do have the potential to get that insane 8-shot kill in the first damage range. However, just because you have a TTK as good or even better than many SMGs, your mobility will not be anywhere near them. SMGs will have that insane mobility potential that you won't. So you're probably thinking, why didn't I just make a sniper support build for the Grav? And the answer is, I tried, and it was really hard to control without the field agent grip and the task force barrel. You need the 50 round mags because you gotta do as much damage as you can without reloading, so that pretty much leaves the suppressor and the optic. The suppressor you'd probably be using whether it's on a sniper support build or a long range build anyway. The only reason you ever need the agency is if you absolutely need that extra help with vertical recoil and if you want that extra bullet velocity. But as I showed in my Warzone science video on the suppressors and barrels, the benefit you get from the agency isn't really that much. So that leaves our last attachment, the optic. And I chose the axial 3 times because I found myself needing that extra bit of zoom. I found most of my engagements to be around 50 meters, and it helped a lot to have that extra bit of zoom. I originally was going to make this build with the Stilix Holo Scout to save a little bit more ADS time, but I found myself needing that extra bit of zoom more often than not, and sometimes I actually was able to get past 100 meters with this. And if I mounted, I was having a pretty good time beaming enemies. So that's why I built it this way, the same reason we built the CR-56 with the VLK 3.0 sight. So is it worth using the Grav? Well, it depends on the type of player you are. If you're used to using things like the Ram 7 or the CR-56, then yeah, the Grav is probably a better upgrade. And if you find that most of your engagements are around 100 meters or less, then yeah, the Grav is probably one of your better choices. But if you're trying to push extreme ranges, the Grav is definitely not for you. Even if you mount, there are much better weapons available. So I hope that this video helps you decide whether or not the Grav is something that's worth leveling up. But let me know your experience with it. What do you think about it? Do you like it, dislike it? And if you haven't leveled it up yet, are you going to or not? And as always, if there's any build, weapon, or part of the game you want me to break down, let me know, you may see it on the next Community Wednesday. But that's the video. If you enjoyed or was helped in any way, let me know by leaving a like. If you got any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section down below. And if you want to make sure that you never miss another video, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.